73 points off the bench for the Golden State Warriors, led by Quinten Post. Who would have thunk it? 5 threes, 20 points, but more importantly than just stuff in the stat sheet late, anything like that, he looked really good. Gui Santos, once again, energy, 3-point shots. He had a career-high 19. Let's talk about it's a win over the Chicago Bulls at the end of the day. Not a good basketball team, but there were some very positive signs.
Who can stop Steph Curry?
Hopefully we'll never find out.
There's not many defenses in the world that can stop him.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is the good word, everyone? We appreciate you for making Locked On Warriors part of your day. What's up, Kolsky?
Well, I have to stop you because I'm going to let the people in on a little pre-show production. Just as we were going live, you said, is it 63 points for the bench? And I said, no, 73. Your math was wrong. And it turns out both of our math was wrong. Unbelievably, 83 points from the Warriors bench tonight.
83 points is the final number. By the way, I got an Australian Shepherd under me right now, so at some point he may jump up in my lap on the camera. It's very cute. It's the father-in-law's. But anyways, let's get to the important stuff.
You're muted.
This is Locked On Warriors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can check out the show on YouTube, wherever you get your audio podcast. We are brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can get $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. If you win your first bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. The rundown's pretty simple. Quinten Post, a career day, 20 points. His passing was good. Just a lot to be encouraged about from Quinten Post play. Don't forget about Gui Santos, 19, a career high. He looked really good. When those two were in the lineup with Andrew Wiggins, Steph Curry, and Brandon Prizepicks, I really liked what I saw there and made an audacious statement. I'll relay that to the people. Wiggins had a very sneaky, nice game. We're going to be talking a lot about the rookie and the third-year player, but Wiggins was good. And then Vucevic. It was a big talking point before the game. We got a little tryout, and all of a sudden everyone's saying, Vooch, we got the Dutchman.
Yeah, listen. Nikola Vucevic is today a significantly better NBA basketball player than Quinten Post. But, and I know this sounds ridiculous, I'm not sure how much more likely he is to help the Warriors this year than Quinten Post. So I'm interested in talking about that specifically during today's show.
All right, so let's start with just kind of the energy that they got from the second unit, and it was Moses Moody too. Brandon Prizepicks had a really good game. Welcome back, Prizepicks. His first time playing since late December. It was everyone off the bench, and it happened after just a really sluggish start. I was wondering what the hell was going on. The Bulls race out to an 8-0 lead. It looked like the Warriors were sleepwalking. And that, to me, is what's most impressive. They didn't have it. You know, it's a back-to-back. Steph Curry's clearly not 100% play in this game. He's just trying to get through it. And as the game went on, they got more and more energy from the bench. And it kind of reminds me of what was going on at the beginning of the year with the games against Portland and the games against Utah. And really that first month when it felt like the bench unit was the big spark.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the bench played really well. There's an element of shooting from a variety of people that even those of us, or those of them who are, sorry, the dog distracted me. Even those of them who are good shooters are not going to shoot like this every night. I mean, I think Moses Moody's a good shooter. 4 of 7 is not an every night thing. Gui Santos, we have no idea really if he's a good shooter, but even if he is, he's not going to go 5 of 6 every night, right? That said, there was some repeatable stuff that happened here. One of the things is after that ugly start, particularly in the third quarter, I mean, they hit some shots in the second quarter, but in the third quarter in particular, they attacked the basket when the shots weren't falling. And that's why, look, Andrew Wiggins, 17.7 rebounds in 29 minutes is generally nothing to write home about. But the way he played tonight, when he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn in the first half, so often we just see Andrew Wiggins vanish. Or, maybe he does get hot, but continue to shoot the three. He was 8 for 8 from the free throw line tonight. Not just getting there, but hitting every free throw. He was so deliberate about drawing those fouls and attacking the rim in the third quarter. And in general, I thought just the energy level. And that's where guys like Post, who's, clearly excited just to be out there, right? And I think to the extent that he has struggled in these couple of games at times, it's the excitement and the nerves that are getting to him. He even said as much, I think. Santos is just a classic Warriors find in so many ways. I mean, this is what the best of Juan Toscano Anderson looked like, right? The ultimate energy glue guy who's knocking down 3-point shots. And there's always a space for a guy like that on your roster. Now, what's Gui Santos' role when everybody's healthy? It's probably not a big one, but if he can bring that level of energy, if you can count on him to bring.
Let me interject. Are we selling him short? That Juan Toscano Anderson is kind of, his comparison now. Like, could he be even better than we're giving him credit for? Or, hey, it's a game against the Bulls where he has opportunity, he plays well. We see this a lot. Show me.
Well, the best of Juan, two things. The best of Juan was really good. Like, not a starter, but a really helpful NBA bench player. And two, Guy is a little bigger and a little younger, I think, so yeah, the ceiling is probably higher than Juan, but we just don't know. I mean, Juan shot the ball very well one year and not as well the next year, and I think he was gone shortly after that. I might be, screwing the timeline slightly, but that's the basic idea of it. If Gui Santos can consistently be a 40% plus 3-point shooter, he will find a home. No question about it. Same goes for Quinten Post. And here's what I'm going to say about Post.
Let's overreact.
I don't think it is an overreaction. I am going to go all the way back to preseason. And while I still respect that guy who I was when I said the thing, I'm going to disagree with him and say that actually Quinten Post can be a factor and a reasonably important factor in this season for the Golden State Warriors. Because what I saw tonight is a guy that clearly spent his time in the G League well and learned what... I mean, that's the nice thing about the modern G League is it's got organizational continuity. So he's running Warriors stuff. He's learning the Warriors system, and he's learning it as a 30-minute-a-game player who's a central cog in the offense. So when he is out there, he knows what to do, I would argue, nearly as well as guys like Moody or Pajemski who've been on the proper roster for a lot longer. But, I mean, Pajemski's not as good an example. Moody's a good one, who's been there so long but hasn't gotten the consistent game running Warriors stuff. It's just not the same as practice. And even though the G League is not nearly on the NBA's level, talent-wise, like you're still in live games running Warriors stuff, and you can see how it's paid off because he went from looking like a scared kid when we saw him earlier in the season. And frankly, that made me go look at his G League stats. And it's telling because I didn't know this until I looked today. I have not watched any G League this year, but the G League changed their format. And the first portion of the season is now called the tip-off tournament. It's 16 games. Quinten Post played in 11 of those games. And again, central part of the offense, averaged 18 points and 8.5 rebounds and a block. He was a 31% three-point shooter, 49% overall. All right, that's his first 11 G League games. The last 6, he's 22 points and 11.5 rebounds, a block and a half, shooting 42.5% from three-point range and 57% overall. So, I'll tell anyone who wants to talk about the G League, because I did work in it and watched it a lot for years. If you're going to be a helpful NBA player, you're going to be pretty dominant in the G League. Even now that it's better than it was, certainly, 15 years ago when I was there, but even 5 years ago. And he has started to really dominate the G League over the last handful of games. He is ready to play NBA basketball, and he has a very specific set of skills that the Warriors very much need. Something we've talked about many times before this season without mentioning Quinten Post's name. And after watching him for 2 games, as he's gotten a little more comfortable, I think he needs to be on the team playing 15 plus minutes a night right now, no matter who's healthy. And I would consider starting him over Kevon Looney and Trayce Jackson-Davis, because the way he spaces the floor makes everybody's life so much easier. Adding that shooting center next to Draymond, it is something that they have not had and have needed for years. And it's almost too tantalizing for me to not say, just put him in the starting lineup, even when everybody's healthy.
I agree, man. We were begging for Miles Turner. And I mean, look, Quinten Post has a long way to go before he's Miles Turner, right?
Especially on defense.
Yeah, 1,000%. But what he is a competent NBA player, at least 6 games into his career. And today he goes with a career high. And I'm to the point, especially with this team, where it's like, if someone shows you they can play, ride the hot hand, ride them until they show you they can't. They kind of did it earlier in the year with Waters a little bit, where they're like, all right, this guy can play, let's go. And then he shows you that maybe some other options are better, and he has his spots. That's what I'd love to see with Quinten Post. Starting lineup, I think I found a new starting lineup. Is it bold? 1,000% it's bold. But this is Locked On Warriors, so we're going to talk about it.
Forget that. We champs. Why are you starting with that question? We got 4 championships.
From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. It is that time of the year, everyone, and new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with those $300 in bonus bets. That's on FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Back to the show.
I don't give a damn about no damn Drake night.
All right, tonight, a couple things that I found very interesting. 3 Warriors had a minus in the plus-minus category today. It was Gary Payton, it was Buddy Hield, it was Trayce Jackson-Davis. And what's interesting about that is all 3 of those guys were kind of replaced, right? I mean, you can say Gary Payton, the Energizer Bunny. Gui Santos kind of was the replacement tonight and was excellent in that role. Buddy Hield, I guess for the sake of the argument, we'll replace him with Brandon Pajemski, who I thought played really well, was a steady hand. Although, let's give Buddy some credit. I did think he had some really good defensive moments in the first half, although he didn't do a ton in the game necessarily overall. And then Trayce Jackson-Davis replaced completely by Quinten Post, who gives you a completely different offense. And here's a bold take that I'm going to say. I texted you against the Chicago Bulls with a bunch of players injured, and I said, I think I found the new Warriors starting 5 that may unlock the secret sauce. It's Steph Curry, it's Andrew Wiggins, it's Gui Santos, it's Brandon Pajemski, and it's Quinten Post. Sure, you don't have a ton of NBA pedigree in that lineup. You do have Andrew Wiggins, you have Steph Curry, and you have the all-rookie team player in Brandon Pajemski. But yeah, Post, Santos, still a lot to be seen from those 2. But it gives you different skill sets, man. It gives you a little more size. I think Gui plays a little bigger than his size just because of his energy and how active he is. And then it gives you Post stretching the floor. It's somewhat intriguing. It's a ridiculous thing to say and could backfire on me, but that's kind of my take right now. Is I'd like to see more of those 5 running together.
Well, I'll tell you this right now, you're in a state with the Warriors. Just the way the spot you're in at 500. But remember, I believe you're currently, after the win, 2 games out of 7th and 2.5 out of 5th. Okay. So still in competition, desperate to hang around 500 for the time being while you try to get people healthy, right? I mean, that's the state of the franchise currently. The only 2 starters that I'm putting in pen on any given night are Andrew Wiggins and Stephen Curry. Everybody else is up for debate. All right. So if Quinten Post keeps playing like this and Gui Santos keeps shooting like this, who am I to call any starting lineup ridiculous until you get real NBA starters back? So if we're talking about now, right, and not when everybody's healthy, but if we're talking about right now, I don't hate it. I really don't. It's not a terrible defensive lineup. It's a lineup where, at least in theory, everybody can shoot a three-pointer. It's a lineup where you have multiple people who can attack and get into the rim, into the lane. You have multiple people who want to make, gritty, tough guy plays, right? Everybody's competing defensively in that lineup. For me, I would trade out Gui Santos for Moses Moody. But again, and to Steve Kerr's credit, I don't think he has been dogmatic with the starting lineup with everybody hurt. He's been messing around and trying to figure it out. I mean, the last 2 nights are a pretty goofy one, and I don't love starting Buddy or Gary Payton. But in their defense, like, their plus minus is largely affected by a bad start to the game, which has plagued the Warriors all season long, and then not playing much after that. So, I don't want to overrate how bad Gary Payton's plus minus looks tonight, because there are plenty of nights when he's the only guy with a really good one, right? So he is what he is. I wish you didn't have to start him, and I think you're right that, if Schroeder's going to be a bench guy, Pods is probably your natural 2 guard in the starting lineup if he's healthy enough to be there. And then everybody else, Post, Looney, Trace, Moody, Santos, they should all be in the mix as far as I'm concerned.
Final number for the Warriors from 3-point range in the game. They were 25 of 57. So they knocked down 25 threes, and they do it on 36 assists in the game. Overall, no complaints there. I want to go back to Quinten Post because he's the star of the show, the second leading scorer in the game today for the Golden State Warriors. First, let's give the flowers to Steph. He goes 8 of 19, 5 of 12 from 3. Again, 7 assists. He's done a good job facilitating now that he's got that starting point guard role, and he's handling the ball more in the lineup as compared to, having Schroeder in there with him. He's the primary ball handler. He's done a good job facilitating, and another good game for Curry. And then credit Andrew Wiggins for getting to the line 8 times, as we mentioned. He attacked, knocked down all 8 free throws from Wiggins, who's closing in on being about an 80% free throw shooter on the season. But now let's get back to Post. His game, man, it's a lot more than just pick and pop. I think he has a little bit of toughness to him. He's got soft hands, quick decisions, good passing. Is good in that pick and pop with Curry. Like, I like him, man. I liked him when they made the draft. I saw him in the preseason, and he just looked awful in the few preseason games we saw him. Like, he was dropping balls. He just did not look comfortable. The speed was way too quick for him. And even in the game the other day against Sacramento, it looked like the speed was a little too quick for him. But I told you this after the game. That doesn't mean he was having like a bad effort out there. It was just he looked like someone that hadn't played a lot of NBA basketball. And it's like every minute he's out there, he's absorbing this thing and looks a little bit better. I want to stop myself there. It is the Chicago Bulls. They're 19 and 26 on the season. But look, he's going up against Vooch, who's a serviceable plus center in the NBA. Granted, not the greatest defender, but he held his own against Sabonis. So, I mean, I like what I've seen, man.
Physically, he's thicker than I thought. So I agree. I think he'll hold up okay. And look, he's not gonna be the cerebral, always in the right spot, you know, overachieving defensive stalwart that Kevon Looney is, because nobody is going to be that right now. But I do think he can make up for some of what he lacks relative to Looney and even TJD on defense by being 7 feet tall. He is a legitimate 7 feet tall. He's a big boy. And again, there are players who help you by being excellent, okay? And he is not that right now. And then there are players who help you because their skill set is so additive to what you do that they function as multipliers for the rest of the team. And I think, even when this team is healthy, both offensively and defensively, having a 7-footer who can stretch the floor. And look, if he continues to hit threes, he will force defenses to respect him out there. That's just the way the league works. And his record, he was a 43% three-point shooter in his last 2 seasons of college. He was a 40+% shooter the last, 7, 8, 9 games in the G League. He's got as many bona fides as you can have as a shooter without having them in the NBA, and the only way to get them is to play. Like, I don't want to belabor the point, but we fought about it with Kuminga for
now's the
games.
time and until Quinten Post shows you something that he cannot play at this level, now is the time to give him more and more minutes every single night. And there's no excuses.
And Moody
there's
too.
Absolutely no excuses with the whole Moody Kuminga thing. Okay, you're playing behind Klay Thompson. You can make a few excuses here and there, but now's the time.
Yeah,
there's no one in his position. No one.
No.
I mean, Trace Jackson Davis, nice player. Don't get me wrong. Is he the? I mean, he was picked in the same exact round. 2 picks away from Quinten Post. I mean, at the end of the day, you see what he's got.
Yeah, and look, in a broad sense, it may be that the ceiling for Quinten Post and Trace Jackson Davis as players are similar heights, right? But they're very different ceilings. And even if they both top out as like mid-level or even low-level NBA starting centers, right? Even if that's the best you can imagine for either of them, that level of player who shoots threes and is 7 feet tall helps the Warriors a lot more right now than that level of player who is 6'9" and like maxing out with athleticism and effort. And it's not a knock on Trace Jackson Davis. I think he's a nice player, and I think he has a spot on this team. But because of what, look, if I'm not saying scoring 20 points, but if the ability to step out and hit a three and also the ability to be sufficient defensively is real from a 7-footer in Quinten Post, what he can do for this offense when Kuminga and Draymond are back, you can roll out lineups of Steph, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond, Post. Like, it changes so much. You have to see if it's real. You've got to, and you've got to do it now. So, I don't want to be doing
now.
This. I don't want to do 15 more shows of, can we please just see what Quinten Post can do? We've done it enough with Kuminga and Moody. And Moody,
and here's the thing, we've grown. We're talking Moody next segment. We've grown into this take, dude. Like, we were both on the train of Quinten Post isn't ready to play. We would have said this 2 weeks ago, So it's we're not the internet guys that we've seen all season where it's like just put in Post and we'll start winning. Put in Post. We need size. I thought those takes were asinine, and here I am saying they may have been right all along.
Yeah, maybe they were.
Maybe they were. Maybe the YouTube commenters know more than Steve Kerr. I don't know at this point. Anyways, let's talk about Moses Moody coming up. He's had an impressive stretch. Continues it today.
Who can stop Steph Curry?
Hopefully we'll never find out.
Therapy's a game changer. It can help manage stress. It can improve sleep. It can do a little bit of everything. You can communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule, it can be a challenge. That's where TALKSPACE comes in. TALKSPACE, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With TALKSPACE, signing up is simple. You match with a licensed therapist, fits your needs. Usually it's within 48 hours. It's convenient. You can have sessions for the comfort of your home, even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, it's covered by many insurance plans. And for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. And as a listener to this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with TALKSPACE when you go to TALKSPACE.com/LockedOnNBA and enter promo code SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to TALKSPACE.com/LockedOnNBA, enter that promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show support for the show. TALKSPACE.com/LockedOnNBA, promo code SPACE80.
Who cares how I feel? It's about winning basketball games.
All right, man. Moses Moody's been awesome for the Golden State Warriors. He's had a very interesting season because he started off brilliantly. And when I say started off, I mean in camp and in the preseason. It was the play that he had in preseason that allowed him to get a little 3-year, $13 million extension. The Warriors brass had seen enough to say, all right, Moses can be a part of this future. Then the knee becomes an issue. We get some, 8-minute games here and there to where you're scratching your head saying the Warriors aren't talented enough to play Moses Moody 8 minutes and not know exactly what they have, right? Well, they've played him a lot in 5 straight games, and he now has 5 straight double-figure scoring outings. He's been shooting it really well from 3. He's one of these guys that, like, off the dribble is just not a good shooter at all. He has to be in rhythm. He's got to have his feet set. That's just the type of shooter that he is. And when he, gets his feet set and when he finds his spot and has a little bit of time, he's been really good, 44% through his last 5 games. Your overall thoughts on Moses Moody? I think you're high on him right now, considering you said you would throw him in the starting lineup.
I've been high on him all along, for the record.
You've never wavered?
No, not really. No, I mean, look. I think I got sick. I'm so sick of hearing myself whine about Steve Kerr's rotations. I don't even know how. It's just frustrating because no, I've never wavered on Kuminga or Moody. And what I've said all along is that you drafted kids at 18, 19 years old. It was never realistic to expect them to show consistency without receiving consistency. And for the first time all year, for sure, and I would venture to guess in his whole career, Moses Moody has played 25 minutes or more for 5 straight games. And guess what? He's playing great. Who would have thunk it? Maybe somebody even told him, or maybe he could just see the writing on the wall since they don't have enough players. Like, I can make a mistake and I'm still going to get 25 minutes tonight. And I know, they're paid millions of dollars and he's got to be mentally tougher and all this. But just like, you're talking about a guy who, since he's 19, has been in a situation where he feels like if he makes one wrong rotation, he might not play for 3 games. And you can't just erase that stuff when you think about a kid's development. And I understand.
So let me ask you this. I want to interject because this is a serious question because you're a big Steve Kerr guy. You think he's still an incredible basketball coach. If he's making this many mistakes with his rotations to you, like, you can't have it both ways, right? It's a big part of the position.
That's what I was about to get to, right? Is like, Steve Kerr has as far as a lot of this is interpretive, right? Because no one's saying this. But my interpretation is that Steve Kerr has pretty clearly taken the stance that as long as I am coaching a team with Steph Curry and Draymond Green, it's not fair for me to focus any real NBA minutes. He has been unwilling to make real NBA regular season sacrifices towards the end goal of developing young players, if those sacrifices might, prove challenges or negatives for the guys that he's won 4 titles with. And that is totally understandable and in many ways reasonable. But I think what it's missed is the forest through the trees, that in reality, the best way to put those Hall of Famers in the best situation to win again before it's all over has been, for a couple of years now, since the last title, has been to develop the young players, because there really haven't been great opportunities to add an older, more veteran player at the cost of those young players who would change things in the way they need to be changed. What you really need is a supercharged athlete like Jonathan Kuminga who can really score the ball. And, it never hurts to have another 3-and-D wing player who can do some things, which is, I think, what Moses Moody can be for them. But those guys have been asked to do too much while being given too little. And so, that's what I'm saying with Quinten Post. And look,
it's going to be a telling time for Steve Kerr, because there's no excuses positionally. Okay, if he's a shooting guard, maybe it's a little different story. Podziemski's back. You can make the arguments there. You have some veterans, but at the center position,
they need it.
Come on now. You have an expiring contract and you have a player that is 1,000% one-dimensional.
And again, I get it.
Trey serves a purpose. He's an Energizer bunny, right? But he's got no offensive bag. I mean, Trace Jackson-Davis in a pick-and-pop game, can you imagine that? The defense would be like, what the hell are we doing hanging out here on Trace?
Right. And look, I appreciate that anytime you give a young player minutes, you are gambling, right? And I also appreciate that Steve Kerr has not wanted to gamble with Steph Curry's life, so to speak. But for God's sakes, you're 500 again, and you got to find out. You have to find out. And if you roll with Post for 20 to 25 minutes
especially because of the whole Vucevic decision in 2 weeks. I mean, it sounded like the Warriors were seriously interested in Nick Vucevic and that he could be a piece that they bring in. It would probably require a first-round draft pick. You better figure out what you got in Quinten Post. And the only way to figure that out, and you're not going to figure out entirely in a week, but you can at least see if he can play at this level consistently over the course of a 2-week span by just playing him. 30 minutes a night. It's that simple. It really isn't rocket science, man.
And what do you have to lose?
You got nothing to lose. What is rocket science is defensive schematics in the NBA. It's confusing. However, today it wasn't. The Warriors just brought pressure in the third quarter. They turned up the energy, much like the Kings did on them yesterday. They brought back they returned the favor. They returned the favor on their home floor tonight with really good ball pressure. I thought Schroeder was great defensively. Anyone else stand out, and what was most impressive about that third quarter?
What was most impressive to me is that nobody stood out, because it was an across-the-board energy uptick. Credit Steve Kerr for whatever happened at halftime, because it went from boy, if Gui Santos hadn't hit some threes, you might not be in this game right now, to, wow, this team came to play in the second half of the second night of a back-to-back, and the energy level is on point. And it was on offense, too. That was where Andrew Wiggins was really going after it, getting into the lane. So that's a credit to Steve Kerr and every player who was out there. They just turned the screws on the Bulls. And I think in some ways there was a little rope-a-dope effect that everything had been so easy for the Bulls in the first half. All of a sudden the screws were turned up kind of out of nowhere and they fell apart.
Lakers are up next. Saturday game, right?
Yep.
Saturday game at Chase Center. It's the Los Angeles Lakers. It's
beatable.
The Golden State Warriors. It's basketball heaven. It's Steph against LeBron. What is
It's
there not
Quinten
to love?
Post against Anthony Davis. Let's go.
Oh, Quinten Post against AD. This is what we've all been waiting for. Also, the All-Star lineups. We've been waiting for this. May as well read them on the way out. Steph Curry, 11-time All-Star. He's starting at the point guard position. It's him. It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's Kevin Durant. It's LeBron James. And Jokic for the Western Conference. And for the Eastern Conference, it is Jalen Brunson. It is Donovan Mitchell. It's Karl Anthony Towns. It's Jason Tatum. And it is the Greek freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I guess the only snub off the top of my head that I can think of is J-Dub from Oklahoma City. He's been having the Santa Clara Star. He's been having a nice season, but I guess you can't really make any complaints there.
Well, we don't have the reserves yet, right? I mean, that's a golden age of NBA talent right there. That is so much talent in those starting lineups. That West team in particular. Whew! That's a hell of a five-player basketball team.
I was gonna say I'm excited about it, but I'm really not because the All-Star game sucks. But hey, it's a fun week.
It's going to be a different thing, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be a chase. So it's big time.
No, but I mean, there's like a mini game tournament or something, right? Am I crazy?
Yeah.
Is that anybody? There's nobody here. I
thought it's 3-on-3, right?
I think so.
Breaking it up.
Yeah, so it could be interesting. Let's cross our fingers.
I mean, when they changed the home run derby, right, the first couple of years, it was pretty electric. And
power of positive thinking, baby. Let's go.
I mean, let's hope so. I don't have my hopes up when it comes to All-Star games, but the hockey one that they did in the past, that they still do it with the 4-on-4 or whatever. It's fun to watch. So we will see about that. This is Locked On Warriors. We are free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts. Final time, the Golden State Warriors take down the Chicago Bulls. 131-106, 83 bench points from the Dubs. See ya, Kolsky.
It's a one-game win streak, baby. Let's go.
Yee!